Marco hadn't planned to stop in the village. His route was supposed to run over the pass. An old road that got lost among the firs, wound past rocky cornices, and finally descended into the valley. There, at a hotel on the edge of the city, a conference, a buffet, and a talk on the digital transformation of libraries were waiting for him. Marco worked on a grant-funded project. He wrote smart reports. He often made up data. He vaped an IQOS. He was one of those people they call a promising young specialist. He was 29. He wore a gray blazer, had a degree in cultural studies, and a ruined sense of humor. But it was in that very village where the road suddenly collapsed into the ground and Google Maps suggested recalculating route that something went wrong. At first, Marco thought he had a flat. The car jerked, not hard. If it had just been a rock, he would have kept going. But there was a crunch from below, and the car tilted to the right. He got out. It was 7 in the evening. Clouds hung low, as if hugging the mountains to themselves, and the forest at his back held its breath. Even in August, the air here smelled of damp, of roots, of a dying campfire. The village sign Ulyaniki was half-flaked, as was the yellow metal stand with the image of a mermaid. No title, no explanation. Only a trembling female figure in a silver haze. Marco looked at the tire again. The tire was intact, but the car really had sagged. He placed his hand on the roof, and he felt moisture, drops. The sky hadn't yet brightened into rain, but the roof of the car was wet, as if someone had breathed on it from the inside. He walked into the first place he saw, a wooden house with a terrace where a sign hung, lodging for guests, tea for locals. An old woman was sitting on the porch. Her hair was pulled into a bun, her fingers knotted like twine, her eyes gray. Not blue, not clear, gray, like a stone that has lain on a riverbed for many years. "Tire?" she asked before he had a chance to say a word. "Yes." The car sagged, but the tire seems fine. "It sagged because the road doesn't want to let you through." "That happens here," she said calmly. "Excuse me?" "Mermaids," she answered, as if that explained everything. In the evening, when he was already sitting with a mug of mulled wine, yes, mulled wine, even though it was August outside, the old woman told her story. "Once, back in my grandfather's time, there was a river here. Not that trickle we have now, but a real river, with a whirl, with a riffle, with night sounds. They say when girls bathed in it, the water grew clearer, and if a boy went in without permission, the water turned dark." "And people connect that with mermaids?" Marco clarified. "With who else? They don't always have tails like in fairy tales. Our mermaids aren't exactly fish. They can look like people too, only the eyes give them away." "The eyes?" Misty, as if you're looking into a lake and it's looking into you. Marco smiled. He had heard plenty of tall tales in his line of work, especially when he worked with folklore expeditions. But this one was different, not because the old woman was telling the truth, but because everything around seemed to silently agree with her. The house didn't creak. The cat didn't meow. The forest outside the window didn't move. As if everyone was waiting for Marco to ask, "So where are those mermaids now?" He didn't ask, because he felt the answer was already somewhere nearby. In the morning, the fog was so thick that when Marco stepped into the yard, he couldn't even see the hood of his car. Silence hung like a heavy sheet. There were no birds' voices, no rustle of trees, only footsteps, his own, damp, unsure. He tried to turn on his phone, but it seemed to have surrendered to the moisture. The screen flickered, froze, didn't respond to taps. "They say mermaids have phones too," the old woman said quietly from behind his shoulder. "But they only use them in summer, and only to call those who have forgotten what they're called." "What do you mean?" "Mermaids don't steal people. They steal names. They take the thing that says who you are, and you are no longer you. You walk among people, you laugh, you joke, but deep inside, there's emptiness." "Is that folklore?" "It's memory, boy, and it's fish-like." Marco stepped beyond the yard, as if at his own risk and peril. The road again looked passable, but down in the valley the fog rose like steam from a cracked kettle. He set off on foot, leaving the car behind. In places like this, it's important not to fight, but to listen. By the old cemetery, he noticed something strange. On one of the stone headstones grew wet grass, but not ordinary grass. It looked like seaweed. Thin emerald strands wrapped the slab like seaweed wraps a rock. And, most importantly, there was neither a name nor a date on the stone. Only outlines, eyes, carved deep, like windows in an old house, empty and at the same time alive. Marco stepped closer, stopped. His body felt a chill, not external, a chill inside, as if someone had touched his chest from within, with a finger, and drew it downward. Behind him there was a soft splash. He turned and saw her. A girl stood knee-deep in a small pool that had appeared where there had been a dry meadow the day before. Her hair fell over her face. Her clothing was silvery, as if woven from night light. "Good morning," she said, her voice not ringing, not sweet, calm, like water in a pitcher. "I thought there was no pond here," he said. "There wasn't. But you left your car, and it's part of you. It remembers your roots. And one day it brought you here. So the pond appeared. Are you local?" She smiled, didn't answer. "What's your name?" "What's yours?" Marco kept silent, and suddenly realized that he didn't remember. Just like that, all at once. An obvious question and emptiness in response. Not panic, not fear, just a white space. "I forgot," he said. "Then stay here." Mermaids accept only those who no longer have a name. He returned to the house unsettled. Something was spinning in his head. A sound, a name, a word, like a fragment of a song you can't recall. A note was waiting on the table. If you're looking for yourself, go where the water is silent. But don't forget that fish remember, even when we don't. There was no signature, but the handwriting was his. There was no sun that day. There was no rain either. A grayness just hung there, like a film over the eyes. Marco went back to the pond again, not because he had a goal, but because something inside him, between his lungs and his spine, was scratching, not with words, not with pain. It just itched with a thought. There's something of mine there. The pond was calm, as if there had never been a girl in it, nor that strange water that hid depths inside itself. He leaned down, looked, and saw on the bottom a book. Not figuratively, for real. Tattered, wrapped in weeds, it lay among stones, half open, and, the strangest thing, it wasn't wet. The letters hadn't run. On the first page it said, "This is not a biography. This is an extract from Fish Memory. Section, Marco." He recoiled, his heart clenched. This is someone's prank, a glitch, an illness, paranoia. But his hands were already in the water. The icy liquid reached his shoulders. Marco pulled out the book, and it turned out to be dry. In his palms, the rough paper, as if someone had just taken a diary off a shelf. The first entry was dated 2002. Marco came to the shore alone. No one brought him. He chose the place where water spirits once lived. The boy dove to find a shell and saw that the bottom was a face, and the face was looking at him. But he wasn't afraid. On the contrary, he smiled. So she decided, it's him. Marco reread the lines again and again. No, he didn't remember this. In 2002, he was 16. He remembered that it was summer. He remembered that a girl from the neighboring village suffocated in the river. They never found her, but he hadn't been at the scene. Or had he? He saw her again, this time in the evening. At the edge of the pond, she sat with her knees hugged by her arms. Her hair fell over her face, and it seemed she was made of stone, or wood, or simply very old. "You've been reading," she said. "I don't remember." "That's good. Memory is an anchor, and you're drifting." "Who are you?" She raised her eyes, and in them Marco saw not a reflection, but a depth. The kind you see in a mirror that doesn't show you, but someone else, the one you could have been. "I used to be ordinary, long ago. Then the water called. Because there was no home left, no voice. Water is always a second chance." "So you're a mermaid?" "The word is old. People don't understand that mermaids don't sing. They listen, and if you're ready to speak, you'll be heard and remembered forever." The next morning, Marco woke not in a bed, but on the shore. In his pocket, the book. In his hair, sand. In the water, right by the bank, lay an object. Small, smooth. He pulled it out and saw a compass. There was only one word on the compass: home. The compass didn't point north. It didn't wobble, didn't move a needle. It simply glowed inside with a single word: home. And it felt less like a direction than a command. Marco carried it in his pocket over the next few days, like a talisman or proof. In the evening, he went back to the pond, not for a meeting, but to be, presence, silence, and unease. The water was quiet, but sometimes it seemed to sigh. On the third night, he saw her again, this time not on the shore. She was standing in the water. She wasn't swimming, not sitting, not dissolving. She was standing alive as can be. The water reached her waist. Her hair fell on her shoulders. Her face turned to the side. And, yes, legs. Marco stopped. Contradictions played in his head. "Do you have a tail?" he asked plainly. She turned and smiled as if that question were as logical as, "Do you have a shadow?" "Sometimes, when I need to be real." "And now I'm the way you can perceive me." "Is this an illusion?" "It's a compromise." She stepped out of the water. Her steps were quiet. Nothing crunched underfoot, because where she stepped, the grass bent and fell silent. Marco thought, now she'll touch me, take me by the hand, or by the heart. But she sat down beside him, just like that. Between them, nothing, not even the air separated them. "You nearly drowned once, Marco," she said. "You don't remember." "But the water remembers." "Me? Nearly drowned?" "At 4 years old, on a pond. No one saw. You got out by yourself. But it was then that we met." "We?" "I wasn't yet anything then. I was a voice in the water, a particle. You heard me, and I stayed forever." That evening he read new pages in the book. A new section had appeared in it. The fragments weren't about him, but about her. They didn't call her to the shore. She looked on her own. She stared into the reflections of people's faces and searched among them for those who kept water inside. Because the water in people is memory they don't remember. And if you find one of those, you can recall yourself. Marco was the first, not the only one, but the first who didn't look away. It no longer frightened him. It only made him breathe deeper. Marco didn't know what to do with it, like with a truth he hadn't asked for, but that now lived in him. That night he dreamed a dream. He stood on the roof of an old factory. All around water, not a flood, but an ocean. Concrete floated, the sky was gray, like a newspaper in a puddle. And in the middle of this ocean, her, in white like salt. She moved not over the water, through it. When she came closer, he saw, in place of eyes she had two depths, black, calm. "Don't be afraid," she said. "People fear depth because they can't see the bottom in it. But you don't have to drown, you can swim." He woke with a name in his head. Her name, Olena. Why did it appear only now? In the morning he drove to Lviv. In an archive of an old newspaper, he found a note from 2002. In the village of Lipsy, 16-year-old Olena Kravitz went missing. She was last seen at the pond. No body was found. Her parents suspect drowning. Marco looked at the photo. The face was blurry, pixelated, but the eyes, the same. He silently tucked the photograph into the book. During his lunch break, Marco returned to the office but didn't see anyone. All the conversations with colleagues blended into the noise of the subway, and his thoughts spread out like lines on a wet screen. He kept replaying the archive photo in his mind. Olena Kravitz, 16 years old, missing. This should have been a journalistic piece, but he had no desire to write it. He didn't want to expose anything. He wanted to understand. In the evening, he returned to the pond, and he waited. When she appeared, it wasn't from the water, from the fog, and she wasn't alone. Beside her, another figure, female but indistinct, features smeared as if worn away by time, eyes empty like an old television without a signal. Olena stopped, looked at Marco. "She's like me, but not me." "Who is she?" "A mermaid who didn't make it out. They didn't save her. She stayed in the depth, in an eternal loop. And you?" "I'm the chance that happened. I made it out through you. Remember how you nearly drowned once?" "Yes, I know that now. But you don't know that I died then too." In the same pond, on the same day, silence hung between them. Not silence, a vacuum. Marco felt something click inside him. He remembered. Water, a body, someone pulling him down. Then, a moment of light. He breaks the surface, gasping, but in the water someone else remains, a girl. Her hand reaches toward him for another moment and disappears. "That was me." "I left you," he asked. "You saved yourself. And in doing so, you saved me. Not the body, but something deeper. The soul remembers what the brain erases. I stayed in the pond, but later I managed to return." "Why?" "Because memory called you." She sat beside him again, just as she had that first night. Alive, light, not a mermaid, a girl from memory. Marco looked at her hands, warm, not wet, but the ground beneath her stayed damp. "I have to choose, don't I?" he said. "Yes." "What happens if I go with you?" "You'll forget everything. You'll become like me, without time, without a name. but happy. And if I stay, you'll remember, always, because some truths can't be erased anymore. Marco rose without a word. He threw his phone into the pond, the compass into his pocket, the book onto the shore. And he left, not to her, into the forest, into the dark. He walked in silence, but with every step he remembered more. His dreams, her voice, the first water in his lungs, and that hand that vanished in the depths. He didn't choose her, but he didn't reject her either. Because memory isn't about choice, it's about acceptance. The pond again stood infinitely still. Only the old willow above the water kept trembling, as if it remembered what had happened. On the shore, no traces, neither of Marco nor of the girl, only a book with pages gone to pulp. The one he had been writing in, where there had once been text, only a few blurred letters remained. She remembers, and that was all. Time passed, maybe a year, maybe more. The village kept living. People fished, quarreled, got married. At times the pond would catch a shadow. A female figure slipped through the water, not a fish, not a human. But no one asked who she was anymore, because everyone already knew. When strangers asked about Marco, the villagers stayed quiet. Some thought he had moved away, others that he had married. Someone said he had drowned, but the oldest woman in the village would say, "Whoever remembers a mermaid can no longer escape. She remembers too." Later, an article appeared in Kiev, an unsigned piece. It was titled, "She Who Vanishes Beneath the Water." It got a few shares. Someone even wrote, "Incredibly poetic." But fiction. The author didn't reply, and at the end, in small letters, there was one sentence. "This is memory. Not news, but it's what changes us the most." If you listened to the end, thank you. Maybe the story left something inside you too. Maybe a bit of shadow, a bit of water, a bit of yourself. If you want to keep listening to such enchanting stories, hit subscribe. And please leave a like. Now, close your eyes. Let the water not pull you down, but rock you. Let memory not frighten you, but hold you. Sweet dreams. And may everything important rise to the surface.